Who needs fireworks or hot dogs when you have TV Guide? Thanks for tuning in to Tulgey TV, where we're going to take a look back at the United States Bicentennial celebration via TV Guide. One great thing about TV Guide is that it is a document of what was shown on television in any given year for any given occasion. Certainly, the Bicentennial celebration was one of the biggest nationwide celebrations in the nation's history. It's now part of the history of the United States. The Bicentennial celebration was actually a year-long celebration that started in 1975. All you Disney fans know this is true because America on Parade, that pageant that was created especially for the Bicentennial, debuted in June of 1975 at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World. And the Wonderful World of Disney TV series showcased Johnny Tremaine, Walt Disney's Revolutionary War picture, not in 1976, but in 1975. So for a real overview of the Bicentennial as celebrated on the three networks and PBS, we'd have to go back to the issue for July 4th, 1975.
In TV Guide's Bicentennial issue, James Metchner describes television's plans for America's birthday. John P. Roche looks at how TV might have covered the revolution, and distinguished Americans comment on television's future goals. Don't miss this week's special issue of TV Guide.
Many thanks to the Bionic Disco YouTube channel for that historic commercial. It's very interesting to look back on the plans for July 4th, 1976, and the accompanying celebration, where the plans for PBS were to produce a miniseries, The Addams Chronicles, which was one of the most acclaimed dramatic series ever to put on TV. Wonderfully done, and the winner of many Emmy Awards and other honors. ABC's plans included the production of Eleanor and Franklin, which also was one of the most acclaimed dramatic series. But it's quite remarkable to note that the plans included the production of Roots, which didn't show up until 1977, a year later. Fred Silverman, the famous or infamous head of programming at ABC, decided to make an event out of Roots and showed it in January of 1977, one episode per night for a whole week. He may have wanted to really showcase Roots after all the hoopla of the Bicentennial celebration was over. He was also a little shy about showing Roots because he wasn't sure if people were going to tune in or ignore it, thus wrecking a whole week of programming. But his strategy paid off, and Roots remains one of the most watched TV programs ever to be broadcast to this day. NBC's big plans were to have the Today Show salute each of the 50 states once a week for the entire year. And for the centerpiece of the NBC celebration of the Bicentennial, near July 4th, 1976, we have to go back to another issue of TV Guide. Here's good old Mary Tyler Moore visiting Moscow for a televised performance of the Bolshoi Ballet, which was groundbreaking at the time and was also presented as a bicentennial event. Here we see an ad for Tuesday, June 29th, the television premiere of 1776, the famous musical about the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So this was a big coup for NBC. As for CBS, their plans were the biggest. They produced a whole series of historical dramatizations and documentaries, sort of docudramas, about various incidents and people throughout American history called The American Parade, covering everybody from Walt Whitman to Boss Tweed. But in 1975, they had already begun their bicentennial celebration with the 1974 premiere of the first episode of The Lives of Benjamin Franklin. Now, some of you Disney fans might know that from its rebroadcast on the Disney Channel. Here I have the July 1983 issue of Disney Channel magazine. The Disney Channel had just debuted, and one of their first programming events was The Lives of Benjamin Franklin. This is not in very good shape. I don't know why, because I have other issues of the Disney Channel magazine from that same year, and They're not all torn up like this one is. But at any rate, here we see some details about this Ben Franklin miniseries. And it's quite noteworthy because it has different actors playing Benjamin Franklin at different stages of his life. So we can see we have Richard Widmark, Eddie Albert, Melvyn Douglas, and as you can see, they're emphasizing Lloyd Bridges here. Why? Because they have an interview with Lloyd Bridges and his son, Beau Bridges, who both play Benjamin Franklin at different stages in life in the same episode. Now, Lloyd Bridges is kind of forgotten now, I feel. People do know Beau Bridges, but of course everybody knows Jeff Bridges, a huge movie star from many, many films, including The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
And Tron. Most famously of all for CBS is the production of the Bicentennial Minutes, which once a night, CBS had a 1-minute mini documentary on some historical incident that had happened 200 years before. But this issue of TV Guide from July 4th, 1976, gives us a good look at what TV had in store for coverage of the big day. So we have this Bicentennial Guide, which gives a great overview of all the coverage that's going to be happening. And then, of course, going through the listings themselves for that Sunday, because July 4th was on a Sunday in 1976. We can see some of the other details. The local stations via syndication had such specials as The Great American Celebration, hosted by Ed McMahon and featuring stars such as Kirk Douglas, Barry Newman, the Lennon Sisters, Charlie Rich, and Mary Tyler Moore. PBS had Evening at Pops and Evening at Symphony, concerts, of course, and all kinds of other programming. Even Firing Line had Jeremy Rifkin, co-director of the People's Bicentennial Commission, with his opinions on the celebration of America's 200th birthday. Don't know what William Buckley thought of all that. Of the big three, ABC, CBS, NBC, because there were only 3 networks, ABC had the least amount of programming, with a series of specials interspersed throughout the day and then a wrap-up at night. NBC had the glorious 4th, a 10-hour panorama, mostly live, of what's happening across the U.S. and around the world this very day to mark America's bicentennial. It started at 8 a.m., and I think this is very neat. The producer, John Lord, said it would take in not only major festivals, parades, and concerts, but also will report, he said, on who is minding the store in hospitals, firehouses, defense posts, our national parks. There was also the NBC mainstay, a Bob Hope special. Bob Hope's Bicentennial Star-Spangled Spectacular, a 90-minute special with spoofs and satires and sketches. In addition to the TV special, there was a comedy album, a rarity for Bob Hope in that era, certainly, called America is 200 Years Old and There's Still Hope. To give you an idea of the typical Bob Hope fare on that album, we have Phyllis Diller as Betsy Ross, but also some other pretty major players like Carl Malden, Dudley Moore, and others. So very interesting. And here is a TV Guide close-up for the Bob Hope special with a lot of details. So that was a big deal, but nothing for July 4th, 1976 was as big a deal as CBS's coverage. We have this very classy ad that's supposedly a letter from Walter Cronkite, and indeed he may have written it or co-written it because he was a writer, a journalist, giving lots of details for CBS's coverage of that big day. We're taking the whole 4th of July off to show you a good time. On the 4th, we're, and of course we're means CBS, skipping all of our regular programs to bring you a whole day in celebration of us. Fireworks, parades, rodeos, historic battles, whatever America's doing, wherever she's doing it. We'll go on the air at 8 in the morning and be on the air until midnight. Now, don't feel that this is something heavy that you have a duty to watch all day long. It's a party. Drop in any time to see how it's going. We'll go up the Hudson with 18 miles of sailing ships, over 200 of them, all in procession and under sail. That Operation Tall Ships was a big centerpiece of the day, and everybody covered it because it was so visual and so amazing to have all these ships in the Hudson River. We'll pick up a wagon train at Valley Forge and the Boston Esplanade Orchestra with the 1812 Overture. Here and there, a few thoughtful words by people you'd like to hear from. I think that was a reference to Charles Kuralt's On the Road reports from the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite at Mainstay, which covered all kinds of Americana, and those filmed reports were interspersed throughout the day. And then on to jazz concerts in New Orleans, the air show in St. Louis, and more fireworks than anybody's ever seen anywhere. In prime time, Walter Cronkite was joined in turn by co-hosts Valerie Harper, Danny Kaye, and Beverly Sills. Three kind of eclectic choices, but very good choices. Valerie Harper was at the height of her popularity as Rhoda Morgenstern on the Rhoda TV series, the spin-off from The Mary Tyler Moore Show, which was immensely popular at that point. Beverly Sills, of course, was a mainstay of American culture because of her status as an opera star. She was very fun and a very articulate observer. And then Danny Kaye was almost like an unofficial diplomat to the world from the United States, and a very intelligent and humorous commentator as well. And that's the kind of day it's going to be, a day to celebrate a real 4th of July. And it's signed by Walter Cronkite. So significant was the CBS coverage of the Bicentennial on July 4th, 1976, that it was honored with the Peabody Award, and I'd like to read that citation. As a significant telecast of the Bicentennial year, a Peabody Award to CBS News for In Celebration of Us. This 14-and-a-half-hour program conveyed a rare perspective of bicentennial events throughout the nation. From New York's Operation Sail, to festivals in Washington, D.C., to Philadelphia and New Orleans, into remote locations throughout the country, it was pure USA at a unique moment in its history. Hosted by Walter Cronkite, supported by the full resources of CBS News, In Celebration of Us brought great distinction to broadcasting in this nation's bicentennial year.